What's going on, everybody? Welcome into today's 76ers Now, and we have a loaded show to get to. It's the Sixers training camp practices the last couple of days. They held a media day last Friday, so a bunch to react to. Some major news items we got to hit on. The latest on Joel Embiid practicing during training camp. Some more Sixers injury news on Paul George, on Jared McCain. The training camp standouts. Who has played the best in those first couple of days of practices? We'll hear from Daryl Morey, from Nick Nurse, from both Media Day and Training Camp, and some more Media Day takeaways as well, sort of what some of the other guys had to say about this upcoming season. Very excited to get into this one because Sixers basketball and NBA basketball as a whole is back. And for the Sixers, you might not believe this, but they play basketball on Thursday. That's right, Sixers, Knicks in Abu Dhabi get the preseason started this Thursday. That game, I believe, at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. They'll play again on Saturday as well for a back-to-back there between Philadelphia and New York. I know last season was a bit of a disaster, but it's a new year. We can take a breath of fresh air heading into this one and get the juices back a little bit. So if you're excited for the start of a new Sixers season and for the Sixers to actually take the court once again, hit that thumbs up icon and like today's video. So let's get started with Joel Embiid. Some pretty big news from camp here, obviously, with the injury stuff when it comes to Embiid. A lot of unknowns. We don't really know when he's going to be playing, when he's not, but it's good to see Embiid was back out there for the first official organized team practice of the offseason on Saturday's training camp practice and participated in most of the practice sessions, including some of the live sessions as well. Nick Nurse spoke about that just the other day. Somebody asked, how much did Embiid do? Nurse said Embiid did participate. Like I said, everything right from the start was live, and he was in there participating in that live stuff. Didn't do everything, but he did quite a bit. I think he's probably told you how he's feeling, how he's looking, and we'll get to what Embiid had to say in a second here. He's moving good and playing hard, and he had great spirit out there today. That is absolutely what you love to see and love to hear when it comes to the big man, because obviously we know the injury concerns that he does have. And Embiid spoke a little bit as well about how he's been dealing with the injuries, and we'll get into some more of this when we talk about Media Day. But, a big focus for Embiid and the team is to really figure out a way, as opposed to last year where things kind of felt disconnected between the organization and Embiid himself. Embiid said this year's a little bit of a different story, Paul Hudrick reporting. And Embiid said, last year wasn't really sure what he could do physically, obviously, coming off the whole Olympics and everything. This year said he's in a good place mentally and better than he was just a year ago, which is, of course, good to hear. Embiid did add on that a big focus with him and Philadelphia this year is really listening to the doctors and listening to his body, taking it day by day. They admitted, look, in the past, we've tried to say, we're going to do this treatment, and we're going to get it right, and this is when he's going to be back. This year, Embiid's kind of said, look, we don't really know what the body's going to say day in and day out. Things can change, which sucks, obviously, but that's the only way you can do it. And that's the only way you can manage these injuries for Embiid is to take it day by day, listen to what his body's telling him. If he has to miss a day here, he's got to miss a day. It is what it is, but take the best care of his body that he can possibly take. So I like what I've heard so far from Morey and Embiid on how they're managing with these injuries. Now, Embiid did not play in training camp or participate, I should say, on Sunday. It was a planned day off. Both him and Eric Gordon as well, of course, the veteran, getting a rest day, so nothing to be too worried about that Embiid did not participate in training camp on Sunday. That was always a planned rest day for him and EG. Now, in some further Sixers injury news, of course, Paul George has been dealing with a knee injury, but we also saw Trendon Watford get added to that injury report with a hamstring injury. Neither of them participated with the team in these team drills and live sessions of training camp on Saturday or Sunday, but both PG and Watford, who again was added with a hamstring injury, did do some individual on-court work both Saturday and Sunday, so it's not like they're both just not playing basketball at all right now. So good news for the both of them, especially PG, who we also have been kind of in the dark on, but Paul George did speak about his recovery to the media on Friday. This next couple of weeks is very important leading into the season, said Paul George. I do feel better. I do feel good. A lot better than I did last year which is saying a lot. That's interesting. We didn't really know, or maybe he's talking about towards the end of the year. Anyways, there's been no swelling, actually. The swelling has been going down as I've been ramping up. That is always very good to hear as well. That's the best possible news. And completely agree. That is the best possible news you could have at this point. But I don't think there's a timeline. It's kind of just how the body is doing as we're ramping up the work. So similar there to Embiid, just kind of see how the body responds. And Paul George did say he's pretty much doing everything besides full contact at this point. Everything else, he's doing basketball activities. We saw pictures of him in the gym, on the court working out. So he is still doing basketball stuff, just not up to 100%. To me, that sounds like he should be ready by the time the regular season starts, but you can't really project when it comes to injuries with the 76ers team. Morey was asked what the timelines could be, if there are any expected timelines for Embiid and Paul George right now. Morey said, we're not getting into expectations right now. We're not setting timelines. You know, if they don't have a timeline, then there's no reason to make one up and give Sixers fans something to believe in when it's really not the reality. So I understand it right now. No need to dive into all that right now. We still have about a month until the season. So just see how these recoveries go. Again, that's kind of been the theme when it's come to these injuries for George and Embiid. As it comes to Jared McCain, we do have a timeline there, a little bit more of a concrete injury for McCain. Reported back last week, I believe that was Thursday, that McCain suffered a sprained UCL in his thumb. The fear was, if he needed surgery, he could be out for an extended period of time. 4 to 6 weeks is how long he'll be out for, according to Shams Charania. That pretty much was best case scenario. There was a chance if it was really bad, he could have been out multiple months. So he'll be out 4 to 6. Again, probably best case scenario here. We'll see if it's closer to 4, closer to 6. He will need surgery on that thumb, but he should be back, should be good to go. Will miss some time to start the regular season with this timeline, but a couple weeks in, hopefully he can come back and have a healthy remainder of the regular season. Now let's get into some more detailed training camp news as far as on the court goes. Some training camp standouts, 4 guys that have drawn some pretty high praise from Nick Nurse, the coaching staff, and fellow Sixers teammates. And that starts with the rookie, the 3rd overall pick, number 77, VJ Edgecombe. He has been drawing rave reviews, really going back the entire summer, but additionally on Saturday, Nick Nurse was asked what players have stood out the most after that first day on Saturday. He named 2 guys. One of them we'll get to in a second. The other, the first name he said, was VJ Edgecombe, which is just phenomenal to see. He's been drawing rave reviews from Justin Edwards, who said that he's adapted really well to the NBA, from Kelly Oubre, who said he has the most potential of anybody in this draft class, and his athleticism and all that. Even 1v1s after practice, him and Maxey going at it. That's been really fun to see if you've seen those videos on social media. And speaking of him and Maxey, Nick Nurse talked about that partnership, that pairing, and having them play with each other and against each other as well. Nurse said, I think we do have to spend a lot of time with them together just to develop the chemistry. I think they'll be together a lot. For the most part, we're going to have them together, but there is a good 40% of practice when they're going at it, and they like to go at it after practice. Those are the videos we have seen and stuff like that too. That's good to see. Sounds like VJ Edgecombe can have a big role sooner rather than later. Camp standout number 2 is going to be Dominic Barlow, one of the additions the Sixers made in this offseason. Barlow on a 2-way deal, but expected to potentially make this Sixers roster as they look to keep a roster spot open as we start the season. Barlow has been really good to start these first couple of days of camp, and it's at a position where he can make a pretty big impact for the 76ers squad. Nick Nurse addressing that play for Dominic Barlow, saying he's standing out early on here, just really on the glass. Sixers fans would love to hear that. Making some shots, playing extremely hard, involved in a lot of good stuff. And look, Barlow at 6'9", 215, someone who, again, you hear Nick Nurse say he's been involved on the glass, right? That is where the Sixers have needed a lot of help for a couple of years now. And with that size, with that skill set, yes, he's technically on a 2-way right now. I think he can come in and make a big impact on his team, especially if he can get that 3-point shot to be a little more consistent. But if you watch some of those open runs the Sixers were playing in about a month ago with some of the players from the team, he was looking athletic. He's looking long, a little bit of a freak. So good to see him making an impact here early on. Always love to hear the new guys making their statement and their presence felt. Camp standout number 3 has been Adem Bona. Love to see this, right? Because the second year man out of UCLA had a really, really impressive rookie season at that center spot for a second round pick, and then played in Eurobasket over the summer. And we said, like, that experience, right? Getting to play Eurobasket for a team with Turkey and Alfred Şengün, who made it to the silver medal game. I believe they lost in the gold medal game. They did to Germany in Eurobasket. But look, he didn't play a ton of minutes, but when he was out there, he looked really good. And he said that experience has really helped him a lot entering his second season at a position with backup center we know very important for a Joel Embiid-led team. Now, Nick Nurse talked about this backup center spot because there's a lot of guys fighting for minutes behind Joel Embiid, including Bona. Nurse also mentioned Andre Drummond, of course, Janai Broome, and Jabari Walker, interestingly enough, at that center spot. We'll talk more about Jabari Walker in a second. And Andre Drummond, according to Nick Nurse, in really good shape, dropped some weight. Janai Broome's looking good. And then, of course, Adem Bona. So some good signs for the center depth. Specifically for Adem Bona, Tyrese Maxey showing him some love. He was asked, Maxey was, if he thinks this offseason in the Eurobasket helped Adem Bona a lot. He said, yes, 100%. I think the Euro stuff really puts his confidence on another level. He's just playing a lot more free, I feel. He's catching the ball a lot better. He's protecting the rim like he always does. He's more vocal. He's more confident. You can see him smiling a little bit more. All really great stuff to see from the Sixers backup center, who, again, going to be relied on probably pretty heavily here, depending on how many games Joel Embiid does end up playing. And then we get to our final camp standout here. We just mentioned his name earlier. That is Jabari Walker, another of the Sixers' two-way players who was brought in this offseason, who also is going to be fighting for that final roster spot with Dominic Barlow. A little bit different of a body type and a different play style, but can impact the game in similar ways for Philadelphia. Nick Nurse also had some really good things to say about his role to start training camp. Jabari, and once again, you'd love to hear this, can really rebound the basketball. If you guys have seen him play, one of those guys that kind of emphatically snatches rebounds out there, and he's really good on the defensive glass. I just kind of reminded him that yesterday because I didn't quite see that, but I did see it today. This is from Sunday. He did impose himself a lot more today. And what was very intriguing is that Nick Nurse added they are working on developing Jabari Walker's handle. They want to see him be the kind of guy who can grab a rebound and then push it up floor, push it up the court. They think his handle can get to a point where he can do things like that. Now, Nurse said it is still a little bit of a developmental skill set for him, but he can play that kind of role for Philly. What's also interesting, I mentioned earlier, Nick Nurse mentioned Jabari Walker as a potential backup center option, right? So if you think about him potentially playing that backup center, not your typical backup center, right? 6'8", 214, a little bit smaller, but he's played in those kind of small ball five roles before. He is a guy that's going to fight on the glass, right? And I think Nick Nurse had to remind him, like, hey, like, you can go out there in training camp, you could play your ass off. And he has been, especially rebounding the basketball. If he can hit that three-point shot a little bit more consistently, him and Barlow, man, it's going to be tough to see which one of those guys ends up making this roster. Maybe both of them as somebody else ends up getting cut. But good to see, again, 3 of these 4 names, new guys. 1 rookie, 2 two-way players, and then Adem Bona, a second-year player. Love to see that out of this team right now. Chime in for me. We'll get to some media day takeaways here in just a second. But what is your biggest takeaway from training camp so far? I think for me, it's been how quickly VJ Edgecombe has established himself as one of the better players on this roster. It's very reminiscent of when Jared McCain was getting a lot of praise in Sixers training camp last year from Joel Embiid and some of the vets. Seems like VJ is asserting himself early and drawing high praise from the coaching staff and his fellow Sixers teammates. Coming up next, we'll hear from Daryl Morey, Nick Nurse, Tyrese Maxey, and more from Sixers Media Day, which was on Friday. Some important quotes to get to, touching on Quentin Grimes and the new identity of this organization. But before we get to that, do not go anywhere. You want to stick around for that. Got to give a big shout out to today's sponsor here on 76ers Now, and that is Prize Picks. Today's Sixers Now brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football and soon-to-be basketball season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. It is super fun, super simple to play PrizePicks, the #1 fantasy sportsbook app out there. All you do is pick more or less on a player stat projections. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and withdrawals are fast and secure. PrizePicks is also the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you wanted to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, you can do that now on PrizePicks. And you can now follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. So whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or shoot, even me, if you like my picks, you hit the follow button, check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. We got a doubleheader of Monday Night Football action here tonight on the 29th. Jalen Waddle, more than 49.5 receiving yards. Justin Fields, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. J.K. Dobbins, more than 65.5 rush yards. Jake Browning, less than 217.5 passing yards. That is what I am going with. I encourage you to tail my picks, fade my picks, whatever you do it with PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, let's get to some of these notable Media Day quotes from last Friday. Some stuff from Maury, from Nick Nurse, talking about this upcoming season as a whole. But first, we got to start with this Quentin Grimes stuff. As we know, we're a couple of days away from the qualifying offer deadline. Quentin Grimes still without a deal. Maury, of course, was asked about Grimes. He said, I think we'll get to a resolution in the next few days, hopefully. We're excited to bring him back. Quentin's a big part of what we're trying to do now and in the future if we can get things resolved. I'll say this. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Philly Voice did an interview with Quentin Grimes' agent. Quentin Grimes' agent is not happy with the 76ers. And I'm going to touch more on this in another upcoming video, everything he had to say, because he went in on the Sixers, but basically said they're kind of screwing him over and ruining his career is the essence of what the agent had to say. We'll see if something gets done here shortly. Again, October 1st is the deadline for the qualifying offer. If not, they'll have to come to some kind of an agreement. Whenever that happens, we'll let you guys know, but it doesn't sound great to me right now. We also got this interesting tidbit from Nick Nurse. Obviously, the Sixers are very guard heavy. We've talked about those concerns of having so many guards in the roster. Nurse said that should help them, though, play faster, which they want to do this year. Got younger. They want to play faster and help guys stay fresher by rotating guys in and out more. Nurse said he could see VJ Edgecombe playing the 1 or the 3, in addition to, of course, his natural position at the 2. Also said he thinks we could even see 4 guard lineups this season, which is a bit ridiculous, but now and then I don't mind that. From what I'm hearing here and from what I'm hearing with the early rave reviews from VJ out of training camp and him really asserting himself, I do expect VJ Edgecombe to have a big role early on, especially with the Jared McCain injury. Could he even start out of the gates? Nick Nurse doesn't usually do something like that with such a young player, but it's certainly possible. But whether he's playing the 1, which I think they've been trying to develop, they've said they've been trying to develop his point guard skills. If his defense is as good as it is intended to be, then he can certainly play the 3 and guard NBA wings. So very, very excited to see him out of the gates and see what he can do from day one. Maybe have a similar impact to what Jared McCain was able to do as a rookie. I think my biggest takeaway, though, from Media Day and what the coaches and the players had to talk about was just playing with an identity this year. The Sixers obviously were a disaster last year. They dealt with a lot of injuries, and I felt like they were just throwing players out there at the end of the year, and whatever happened, happened. They don't want that to happen this year. They seem very ticked off from the results last year, and they have a clear message to fix that by playing a certain brand of basketball, and that is what you like to hear. Nurse had this to say about how the Sixers were going to combat injuries this year if they did strike again, because obviously it's a concern with the Sixers team. Nurse said, we have to maintain a style of play regardless of whether who is in or who is out. The next guy's got to plug in there and be able to fit in with the system and create the system like we want to do, which is, again, playing up-tempo, playing with pace. And Maxey added to this. Maxey talked a lot about taking an even greater step in his leadership role this season and really being the guy to get everybody on the same page. He emphasized the way they want to play is this is who we are no matter who plays. No matter who's out there, if Embiid's out there or not, if Paul George is out there or not, if I'm out there or not, does not matter. We have to play the same way every single night. I love to hear that because it was not the case last season. And finally, kind of to wrap this all up, and in addition to this idea of being who we are no matter who plays, the Sixers want to get more tough and more physical than they were last season. The Sixers got pushed around a lot last year. Pretty embarrassing, honestly. And I think that's a part of why a lot of the guys are pretty ticked off about what happened. Nick Nurse even said, I was extremely mad all off season. According to multiple players on the team, leading up in a training camp, the team had been running 5-on-5 scrimmages, but not calling any fouls. So playing through contact, not relying on a whistle to get a bucket, and just being more tough, being more physical, being more aggressive. There's some rumors that that's actually why Jared McCain got injured, is playing in those physical 5-on-5 scrimmages. We don't have confirmation on that. But I do like this as well because I thought the Sixers were just too soft last season, and I'm glad that they at least have an identity and a direction, somewhere they're trying to go with this team, not just relying on being healthy, but okay, if we're not healthy, we got to have a way to play. We're going to be tough, we're going to be physical, we're going to be fast, and we're going to make you feel us at all times. I love to hear that. A little bit of a longer one today, but I wanted to get you guys all the info from the past 3 days. A lot of important stuff to get to. Sixers will, today, Monday, is a travel day for them. They are traveling to Abu Dhabi today. They'll have a couple more practices on Tuesday and Wednesday before they get into game action on Thursday. So we'll keep you guys updated on everything coming out of training camp as they are overseas. And, of course, if any Quentin Grimes news has happened, that's why you hit that sub button, join the channel so you don't miss anything going on with your Philadelphia 76ers. Appreciate you all for tuning in to today's show, and we'll see you next time right here on 76ers Now.